when they announced they were opening up the long snapper position, all of a sudden 15 people think they can long snap, because everybody wants to try to do it. So probably it was one of the most monumental points in my whole football career was winning the long snapping position, because I had to beat a bunch of people out that all thought they could do it. And it was the most competitive situation. And you would think everybody thinks they can snap the ball back to the guy standing there every time, but it's not quite as easy as you think it is, especially when you got, 40,000 people or 80,000 people yelling at.
Welcome to the Courage Never Quits podcast, where members of the West Point class of 1986 tell their stories. I'm your host, Paul LaFontaine. My guest today is Daniel Stredler, Cullum number 43730. We'll hear about Danny's earning a long snapper position at the Army football team and his success as a healthcare executive. As always, the views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not of West Point, the Army, or any organization, most particularly Abbott Diagnostics. Danny Stredler, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing, Paul? Great to be here.
Hey, I'm doing great. You're coming to us from Henderson, Nevada.
Actually, more specifically, Lake Las Vegas, Nevada, which is, yes, a piece of Henderson.
Lake Las Vegas, even more specific, which is southeast of Las Vegas, right?
Yes, southeast, and it's really a resort area, Paul. It's been developed in the last probably 20, 25 years, but it ran into a little bit of a downturn after 2008. Thought it was never going to have a heartbeat again, and sure enough, it came back. Some big development and investments here, so it's really quite a place. And I've been advertising as much as possible to the class. If you're coming through Vegas, you got to ping me because. Okay,
so there's a class of '86 headquarters at Lake Las Vegas.
You got it. It's right here.
And, you heard it here first, folks. Now I know. Now you got to be careful because Kevin Farrell, a good friend and classmate. I see a lot of pictures of him in Las Vegas, so you got to watch out. You open that up.
Hey, bring it on. I mean, I'm not always here, but Bruce Olstein came through and he endorsed and verified and did all approved and all that kind of thing.
Well, if Captain O approves of it, then it certainly is something that should be looked at because he is. Anything he says is all good. I'm on board with, and we are. Before we finish, we're going to have you actually show us the view there because before we started recording, Danny showed me the view, and it's pretty outstanding. It's Captain O approved. So, what brought you to Henderson in terms of where you chose to settle down? So you're retired now.
Yeah, well, I retired at 55, which was 5 years ago for us.
Really,
I was lucky enough, to have a career at Abbott Diagnostics, Abbott Laboratories, great company, and that's one of the retirement levels. So lucky me. I've spent the last 5 years, sort of moving out of the Midwest and getting myself relocated here in beautiful Lake Las Vegas near California, Southern California.
Right.
So I can be close to family and friends and such. So it's great. Plenty to do here. Vegas has really changed. Just a promotion for a second.
Sure.
It's, a lot of people knew it in the past for a lot of, shady things and gambling, but it's, it's entertainment now. It's dining, it's sports, it's outdoor activities. We got Lake Mead and Hoover Dam, the Colorado River right here behind us. I mean, there's so much to do and anybody can come here and do what they want to do. So it's really fantastic, whether you're, sports or outdoors, doesn't matter.
But I'm sure if you and Bruce Olstein were hanging out together, nothing shady occurred.
None at all. And in fact, we were chaperoned by his lovely girlfriend, Mary, so everything was great. Yep.
Well, I actually had a chance to meet a couple years at West Point. Brilliant. And what was it about Henderson? Was it just all California family or were you just like the area, or was that a vacation spot?
Well, so, Paul, I wanted something that was going to be, both feel like a retirement area, golf, a lot of golf out here.
Okay.
Class knows a lot of our class has been here for years on golfing trips and things like that. So Vegas is known for quite a bit of great golfing, but, also all the activities that I mentioned, but being close to California, I mean, that's really the thing. But with, the Raiders who aren't doing so great, but the Raiders, the Golden Knights who, West Pointer brought to town.
Yeah.
And we have baseball coming. The A's are moving here. And they're actually also building a mini Hollywood studios out here is the word. So
yeah,
5 or 8 years.
Pretty soon when all of the professional sports is in Las Vegas, then we just come hang out at your house and we can go to whatever team interests us.
That's right. And I gave Olstein the combination to the door, so I wasn't here. He made himself at home,
Well, see, that's where everybody taking a dark turn, but that's for another day.
You just have to be certified by me to be able to do that. Yeah,
Oh, good stuff.
but Bruce was certified. So
So from Yorba Linda, California, we met because you were a California cadet and I was a California cadet. So we met all those
yeah,
years ago. Yorba Linda is where you grew up.
yeah. So Yorba Linda, which Yorba Linda was a, kind of a pool of a lot of Army football players being recruited out of there. That's how I got to West Point. But
Yeah.
guys like John Roney and Bobby Wood, Joe Hampton, those guys all came out of Yorba Linda, and
Why was that? What was it about Yorba Linda's football programs that
uh,
attracted the academy?
well, I think Southern California, always had a very strong football program. Florida, Texas, Southern California, or California, and John Burnett, Coach Burnett, who is a fantastic coach that was on the Army staff for years, worked for Bob Sutton as well, and Jim Young. He was heavily recruiting in the California area. So I just got in on the tail of these other great football players that were being recruited out of here. And, I was a long snapper, I was a linebacker, center, but I got recruited as well. So there was a lot of people, though, that came out of Southern California. I mean, besides just, football.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But
So now, being a California kid myself, I know the California football culture is its own thing. It's not like the southeast of the U.S. Were you on one of those kind of state machine teams that was traveling all over? Or was you just a good regional team? And what kind of high school football team were you on?
Yeah, we were regional, Troy High School. I went to West Point with Eric Wesley, our class, and my longtime friend and roommate, and very, very close friends with him. But yeah, there was a lot. Rob Healy, Dan Sauter, Mike Pompeo, a lot of guys came out of this Southern California area that went to West Point. So it was a heavy area for recruiting, both for sports and find people to attend the academy. Eric, of course, Wesley was captain of the water polo team.
Yeah. Rafi Moranian was out of the Southern California as well, right?
Along with Joe Martin. Yeah.
Darren Moore was out of Huntington Beach. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a great area. That's kind of where it started. And for those that don't know, Yorba Linda was the birthplace of Richard M. Nixon. So Eric and I went to Richard M. Nixon Elementary School growing up.
Things like Eric all the way back as a kid, as a youngster then.
Grade school. I think I have something in grade school with him, but for sure junior high school. Yeah.
Did you say to him in second grade, Eric, you're marked for greatness? Did you ever say that?
We knew going out of Troy High School, though, he was going to be a general. That was pretty much, that was a given. But everybody could tell the way Eric was. Me, they didn't know so much,
Well, in high school, were you a linebacker and a center in high school as well?
Center, linebacker, tight end, played a lot of different things, but I did long snap, and that's one of the things I did at West Point. So a lot of fun.
How were you all in on football, or did you have a portfolio of stuff you did in high school? Were you academics as well?
Eric Wesley and I, for example, were on student government, so things like that. But for the most part, it was sports and some student government, and those were. The things you needed to get on your resume to go to West Point. So
right.
Well-rounded, jack of all trades, master of none, the usual profile. So
talk about you're being recruited. You had to make the decision on going to the academy. What was going on there that made the academy stand out?
Right, Paul. Well, I thought besides, great academics, what was interesting to me was the opportunity to fly, which I never did, but I thought that would be fun. So I was interested in that. Plus, the attraction is, look at the team this year. I mean, we got to play Notre Dame. Back then it was, hey, you can come play Division I football. We played Notre Dame back then. It's not always a good outcome for Army in the recent, decades and such, but still, the idea of you can either play for them or against them is always still, a lot of fun. And, that's a draw. Plus, the opportunity to travel and serve the country afterwards. And a lot of great things and good feelings and learning experiences come out of serving, as a lot of people listening will know. And most of us took away experiences that we've used our whole life and contributed to the country, but also to other places, corporations or businesses or young people, whatever it may be, helping out. So I think that was attractive.
Yeah. So football players, so you had certainly a goal going in. You were gonna play for Army eventually. How about that Beast Barracks? How'd that hit you?
I made it through with Jimmy Crawford. Great.
Crawford, who's been on the program. Yeah.
Yeah, sure did. And he helped me get through it. So that's always that washout period. And you never know if you're going to get there, but
if you're going to have anyone as a wingman, Crawdaddy's the guy because he's good with the grades.
Yeah, smart guy. Exactly. He was the guy feeding me all kinds of, information. And, make sure you know this, make sure you know that. Okay, great, thanks. So I survived with him. But
So he was in your beast company.
Yes, he was beast. So
now, did you have any preparation going to the academy, or did you hit it cold? I mean, did they?
I was pretty cold. Yeah, I was pretty cold. Eric Wesley got accepted like months before me, and I got accepted like towards the very end, February. So I was a little bit cold. As an athlete, we got to go on a recruiting trip. I think a lot of people visited there, whether they were recruited or not, and got an opportunity to see it. But many people showed up, as the first day, never even having been there in some cases.
So you're our first football player, I'm delighted to say. So we'll ask everyone that comes on. So when you went for your recruiting trip, did they soft play it a little bit? Did they kind of downplay the discipline piece to try to get you in? Or did they just hit you cold with it and say, no, you're going to suck it up here?
Yeah, Paul, they hit you cold in the face. There was no pulling any punches. And I mean, they couldn't because, right, you either want people that want to be there or don't want to be there in order to get the football players.
Yeah.
And keep, you can't afford to kind of fiddle around with that. I remember sitting at the table with John Roney, one of our great linebackers there, class of 85. And, I think he was my host that weekend and looking at him and him looking at me. He was a plebe that year, but I could see just from the body language and the look and, like all the fun had been pulled out of him.
Right.
So he was just very, wasn't the same John. I even played in high school and wasn't the same.
I am going to steal that quote. That brilliant. Yeah. All the fun was pulled right out of him. That's right. Because you knew him in high school. Did you know him in high school?
I played against him 1 year in high school. He was a year ahead. We played against their school. So yeah, they were very good then too. But
and you do kind of get to know the players at the other schools that you play against. So it's a small type of community. So you knew him that, but all the fun had been pulled out of him.
I was always kind of an organized. One thing about me was always organized and clean and neat and tidy. So I did like that aspect. When I went to visit West Point, I liked that part of it because everybody had to keep their room clean. That was great for me. But I think as being a football player, a lot of guys came in that at that time lost a lot of weight. So you lost weight during the first 6 or 8 weeks, and then you went on to football camp. And I think the biggest thing was trying to balance keeping your strength and your weight, knowing you're going to be hitting against other people, big and strong, not,
really soon, right? Yeah.
Really soon. I mean, from other programs,
Oh, right.
But so that was always kind of a challenge. And at the time, I don't think they had that figured out, but it seems like they must have it figured out now, especially with players.
So if you can remember, what was your weight going in and kind of at the end of base barracks, did you drop a bunch?
I was like 220 something going in and 207 after Beast. So
okay, yeah.
I probably dropped 15 to 20 pounds, but
yeah.
So but soon that was over. We got to football camp, and getting the football camp going was a big thing, and that made it something to look forward to. So
F1 was your plebe company. How did they treat you as a football player? How was because first regiment? How was F1 as an experience?
Yeah, it was great. The things I remember about F1 was, we were in the, the barracks that were stacked on top of the old ones, the ones stacked. So you didn't really see a lot of people,
right?
Except when you came out from formation, you didn't pass people in the hallway that much. So you're very kind of isolated. And, at that time, Jim Saramba and Jim was one of my roommates. And I think, there was a lot of close-knit camaraderie. You got through things together. There wasn't a lot of, the camaraderie that I experienced once I got out of plebe year and into the other companies where it was a little more spread out in Eisenhower barracks and in that area. But it was tough. And I think the academics and the football, whatever sport you might have done, or intramurals. I mean, anything that was thrown into your life, whether you did sports or whether you were a cadet doing other activities, it was quite something to take on that first year. So I think that's one of the biggest things that one of the hardest things in life was that first year. But once you've been through something hard like that, it makes the rest of life, like you get a handle on it and you can master it or take it on. So
absolutely.
That's
what was it like, the group of plebes in the football program? Did you all compare notes or did you all just can do your thing?
the thing about the plebe program was a lot of guys were making decisions that year on whether they wanted to continue to play, all 4 years. So I do know that was always something that went on with people. But, I mean, great camaraderie. The being a football player or in any sport, you really build those bonds with the people you're around. So, the bonds that I built back then, plebe year and beyond, are just incredible. I mean, keeping track even today with some of the former players,
right.
Dan Sauter, Rob Healy, Kirk Gutierrez, Daryl Londo, those guys, Rick Lang. I mean, just fabulous people, Donnie Smith. And, not only were they great football players, but, you started building a bond right then and there and carry it to this day. So
Dan Sauter was in my plebe company, so that was our claim to fame is we had him going through the program. So,
yeah, it was Dan's a character. Be a champion, right, Dan? So that's Dan's tactic. I'll give a plug for him.
Hey, any plug we can give is all good. So E3 as a yearling, off you went. How did you find that landing place?
Well, so before getting into E3, we had summer camp. Varsity season. So that was a fun year. I always like to tell the story. Dan Sauter, Rob Healy, and I were roommates at summer camp at football, and that was quite a room. A lot of smack talking going on, mostly between Rob and Dan. But and
you were just the quiet guy in the corner, I bet.
I was sort of the moderator. I'd say, that wasn't funny, or that was pretty good. Or you got you that time, I'd play the music, stuff like that. But no, we had a good time, and the summer camps were always both challenging, but also a lot of, again, fun camaraderie.
And when was summer camp? Because obviously we were at Buckner getting ready for yearling year. When was summer camp?
Yeah, you may recall, Paul, but usually football got pulled out of there. At the time, we get pulled out maybe the last week or so to go to our summer camp. But they used Buckner for summer camp for the football camp back then. So I think it was after Buckner was done. But we used to get pulled out and go right there, and then we'd jump right into football. So in sophomore year, that was the first year where people started getting like real shots at playing on the team.
Right.
That maybe like guys like Craig Stopa had been our kicker as a freshman, or Donnie Smith, who started as a freshman.
So run us through a day in the life as an upperclassman football player. So you they just had the current quarterback on a YouTube video talking about, he was on a podcast talking about what his day looked like. What did a day look like for you guys back then?
Well, it was similar. I mean, back then, we had the classes in the morning. If you're talking about a day as a cadet, we had the classes in the morning, same as everyone. Usually we'd get 2 or 3 classes in before we'd head up to training up, to get taped and training or weight lift before practice. A lot of times this wasn't something everybody knew going on, but we do film. I remember the coaches would come down to the mess hall. A lot of them would sit at our tables and eat with us, and then we'd get off to the side. Usually there were places there we could watch film at lunchtime. I'm sure it's much more regimented now, with the team and how they, get film time and training time. But it was even back then, you were fitting in every little bit of football preparation you could during the season. Now, after season, that was different. But, during season, we were quite intensely getting to film, getting training, lifting when we could. So, once you went up there at 2:30, 3 o'clock, you weren't back until 7 or catch the last part of dinner, whatever that was, 6:30, and straight off for study. So just like everybody else, it was full days. You never rested.
So basically they compressed all your classes to the morning hours, because some of us had classes beyond 2:30, right? So
yeah, generally they were always, we were done, 2 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon first thing, and then we'd get up to practice.
Good
so
gravy.
I forget how many, there was maybe 2 or 3 sessions in the afternoon for class.
So how did you do energy management, like sleep? And because the football players are notorious for just basically not being able to keep their eyes open at night. How did you do that? How did you manage that?
I'd say that most of my roommates were pretty, pretty flexible and cooperative when it came to that. So I roomed a lot with Eric Wesley. He was a really not only a great water polo player, but also fine in academics. But we'd study. I mean, we studied till 11, 12 at night, getting up at 5:45, 6 a.m. So the biggest thing and the most challenging thing, of course, is the sleep when you're there and you're trying to perform
Sure.
and get your rest. And I think looking for nutrition, looking for rest everywhere you can get it. Everybody that was an athlete or performed in athletics was probably in the same boat. I mean, most of us were sleep deprived anyway, just from the academics.
Yeah, right.
But I think the extra strain as an athlete for a lot of those that played was, you're trying to get every ounce of your physical excellence out of your body while you're fighting this not enough sleep. You're getting nutrition, but rest is constantly a battle. And the rest can be a competitive advantage for other teams. That
Absolutely.
those
Absolutely.
kind of. So we fought that quite hard, and that was the biggest probably disadvantage of the academy if you're competing in sports. In any of the academies, I'm sure, with the academic workloads and things.
Well, there's a lot of science now. Performance is directly related to recovery, and so sadly, you guys didn't have a lot of recovery. So,
yes,
I used to just march in parades and do intramurals, and I needed naps. I can't even imagine living the life you lived.
Yeah, well, that goes with the territory, but which does not kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah.
So,
You got
make us stronger.
So now in off season, so talk about how did you all approach off season? Obviously, you guys keep yourself in shape somewhat so you didn't completely destroy yourself. But what kind of pursuits would you just be normal cadets and kind of hang out, or would you try to spiff life up a little bit, have a little bit of fun? How would you handle off season, just given the fact that on season was so intense?
Yeah, Paul, it's got to be year round now, and it was pretty much year round back then. I mean, we get time off. We came back from the holidays, but you jumped right back into strength and conditioning training. That went on in the winter months. We weren't on the field per se, but it was all built up to spring training, spring ball. So we would be pretty intense. That's when we were trying to put on weight, put on muscle.
Yeah, right.
Add conditioning. Things like that. Occasionally, Eric Wesley would try to teach me to ski on the ski slope, and I'd fumble my way down. He was a skier, and I wasn't. But we got some time off to do some fun stuff like that, goof off. Those were the months we'd get on the road and go to a concert or something too for fun on the weekends.
But did your position remain consistent at Army from high school? What position did you play at the academy?
Well, yeah. So, good question. Talking about myself, it's always, I like to talk about others too, but for myself, I was the long snapper. I was a long snapper in high school, played center, tight end, and linebacker. But when I got to West Point, I was tagged to be a center, and I became the long snapper sophomore year, which was real fortunate because not everybody gets to travel starting as a yearling, as a sophomore. And I got to travel for 3 years with the team. So it's tough to get a spot and tough to get to travel. So I was one of the fortunate ones. Now, I did it on special teams, but, so be it. It was great experience. I was lucky to get it. I always remembered, some of the football stories, Rob Healy, our starting quarterback, he started sophomore year. And, I remember him telling the story to some of my youth football players about how he was 7th on the roster, when he first got to camp. And when they announced they were opening up the long snapper position, all of a sudden 15 people think they can long snap, because everybody wants to try to do it. So probably it was one of the most monumental points in my whole football career was winning the long snapping position, because I had to beat a bunch of people out that all thought they could do it. And it was the most competitive situation. And you would think everybody thinks they can snap the ball back to the guy standing there every time, but it's not quite as easy as you think it is, especially when you got, 40,000 people or 80,000 people yelling at, behind you when you're down between your legs.
We're lucky to be recording this in a year that Army is doing very well with its football program. Back in our day, the punter got a little more activity.
Yes. Well, 83, when we played Notre Dame, we punted 9 times that year.
Right.
We lost 42.
So the long snapper was kind of an important role because there was a lot of long snapping going on.
back then. But then we got good in 84 and 85, the Cherry Bowl and the Peach Bowl. So I probably had many snaps those 2 years as I did my sophomore year.
That's right. And that's because the class of 86 came into leadership position. And there's your shout out for the class.
86, 85 had a big role in the turnaround though too. We got to shout out.
What course of study did you choose given all the intensity of the sports program you're involved in? What was your academic course of study?
Yeah, Paul. So I chose, I was science and engineering. So I had an applied science engineering interdisciplinary degree. My concentration was civil engineering.
Okay.
So despite all the challenges and the fact that, you have humanities or you have the engineering side, I went ahead and went in for the engineering.
Okay.
It was more my forte, being a numbers person. I wasn't much of a writer back then. I'm not like the way Bruce Olstein can read and write, that kind of thing. So I went for engineering. I was glad I did. It helped me later in life in my civilian career in civil world. But, being able to solve problems, that was all part of being a good Army officer and useful in life in general.
Yeah.
So I went for that, and somehow I survived. The GPA struggled a little bit on that, but when it's an engineering class, you were happy to get a C sometimes, So
well, having found my way in it, which now that you mentioned your course of studies, that's probably where we ran into each other is in some of our engineering classes where we were both sitting at the back of the class, scratching our heads. You with the excuse that you were a fine long snapper and football player, me with the excuse of no excuse. Anyway, so what artillery, did it choose you or did you choose it? When did you decide artillery was for you? So
artillery was class rank based, but it was either infantry or artillery.
Okay.
So I just, I'd done an infantry unit in the summer, junior year, Cow year. It was a light infantry unit, Fort Hunter Leggett. We did almost 100-mile road march. And I decided at that time, I think I want to ride. So I went for artillery. But artillery was right for me also because, back then there wasn't the computers that they had today.
Right.
A lot of the calculations were all still done manually. So having been in engineering, artillery made a lot of sense. And the assignment I was able to get was Germany, Europe. So that was my first shot. Met a lot of great people there, and I was glad I did that. But a lot of the class, there was some big on infantry and artillery. I think those were the two biggest areas.
They were right. They were. Okay, but you had the choice: artillery, infantry. You put a little too many road miles on that CTLT, so you said, "Okay, I'm gonna go with the artillery." Smart choice. So coming into senior year, first year, what are some memories of your group? Did you spend time with the E3 folks at all, or how did that work in terms of your socializing toward your first year?
Yeah, I mean, E3 was a great company, a lot of terrific people in E3. I would just say that what I remember most fondly about E3 is I think I was the only football player on the team out of E3, maybe at least the first the first couple of years I was on the team. But I got a lot of fond memories, a lot of football love from people in E3, and I was Eric's wingman or he was mine. So having Eric Wesley in E3 with me the whole time was really special.
So how did that, was that just completely lucky that the two of you ended up in the same company?
Right. So here's the story behind the story. In the spring of plebe year, when I started getting okay with the football team, a shot at being a long snapper, I went to one of the coaches, the one that recruited me, and said, "Hey, I really want to get, when they reassign, I want to get into the company with Eric Wesley. You got to get me." So, yeah. This is not a story I told back then because I didn't want people to think there was, impropriety or special favors going on. Because, of course, there were no special favors that went on. But I did pull that string. And actually, Eric learned that story later, like way later, years later. And he said he never knew that. And I'd never, mentioned it to him. But
it's, hey.
Miraculous. We ended up together. So
that's great. So they were able to make it happen.
Somehow it happened, Paul. I can't tell you how.
It was a completely random process that just happened to have worked out.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a lucky.
That's great, though. But how many times did you guys room together?
We roomed one semester junior year and 2 semesters senior year. I don't know if we got in there together in any of those other, sophomore year. But
each company did it a little differently. Sometimes they insisted you change, and some of our classmates room with the same people almost the entire time. So you're able, 3 of the semesters you're able to take advantage of rooming together. Well, that's great.
And Eric being the captain of the water polo team with Joe Martin, was special. He and I had a lot of fun. I just can't say. I remember one time football was over and he was training for water polo. We were on the first floor, and Eric's about 170 pounds. I don't know, something like that. And I'm at that time 230, and I say, Eric, you need to get in shape for water polo. Let me help you. And I jumped on his back and made him give me a piggyback ride, like up to the 5th or 6th floor. But he did it. He was able to pull it.
Good for him. I'm so glad you decided not to help the rest of us. Well, what's funny is that you room with Eric all the time. I never remember anyone wanting to room with me more than once. Just a strange way that worked out.
Well, that's okay, Paul. I'm sure everybody's glad to see you. And Eric. No doubt Eric ended up, as a 3-star. So what a war hero.
Right. And Joe Martin seems to have done okay. So graduation, off you went, first assignment in Germany. Talk a little about that first assignment as a lieutenant.
Yeah, Germany. So Germany was a lot of fun. When I got there, first of all, I got to meet some great people from our class. One thing I loved about the course of the path of being at West Point and in the Army and corporate world is different people present themselves from West Point along the way. Mm-hmm. So, you get really close to people in your company or your class at West Point, but then you shuffle and you go out in the Army, and then all of a sudden other people you're exposed to, and you build bonds with them. Like, I became really close with Dan Parietti, captain of the wrestling team, class 85, and he was a guy that made it to the NCAAs in his senior year. I think the only one on the wrestling team, but, got close to him, and Jeff Kursanovich, who played football with me. But I got to know Jeff again. And there were people like, Terry Finley and I became real close. I could tell you more about that, but, I knew Terry from football, but we weren't super close, but we went through some things together in Germany. So, guys like that, became close. And you leave other friendships and move along to those. And I think that's one of the great stories and the great things that happen doing the West Point experience and then going into the military. It's the bonds and the people.
It is amazing, right? You go to airborne school as a cadet, you meet new classmates. You go out, and as a lieutenant, I met half of the people I knew as lieutenant were people I hadn't even had any opportunity to know at the academy. So, right. And then later in life, same thing. I have friends who are classmates now that I only met when we were in our 40s. So
right, exactly. So some great new bonds built there, and even in recent years, Dan Parietti, Jeff Kursanovich, and I, and some other guys do an annual ski trip, in Vail or one of those places, and Terry comes along as well, Terry Finley. So just stuff like that from the old days carry you through your whole life. It's really special. Very special.
What did you do as a Turlerman? Were you because I know there was 8-inch, there was all sorts of different roles.
Right. So I was in a unit with, Finley and Parietti and Kursanovich. We did 155 self-propelled, 3ID. John Thompson from football was over there. I remember seeing him a lot. JT, as we call him.
JT did okay for himself as well.
Yeah, JT did fabulous. Another hero. But there was, a number of us, there were 3 battalions and 3ID of artillery. And you pretty much knew, somebody in the other battalions plus ours, and that was great. Got to do a lot of good jobs there. Platoon leader, S1, a forward observer with an air cav unit, flew around all over the place. So a lot of fun times, but it was a important mission guarding the east-west German border, and many of us were there when the wall came down.
Were you there when the wall came down? Sure.
That was something. One day your guns are pointed at the east, and the next day you take it all down, and we ran off to get pieces of the wall, with our hand, real pieces. So
yeah.
We win, get a piece.
Well, there's that, right? The guys on the other side were probably not as excited about having their wall being taken by the other by a bunch of Americans coming over with pickaxes, but
the East Germans were happy, though. Believe me,
I bet
being liberated.
So I did have a chance to look at your LinkedIn. You were in for 5.
I did 5.5, Paul.
5.5.
got out after Desert Storm. You know,
So did you rotate over to the desert?
I was I was a battalion S1 at the time, so I helped staff two of the other artillery battalions to bring the full strength, and so I was in that role.
Okay.
Didn't get an opportunity to go over, but I was in the stay back, and you know we were pulling all the ammunition out of Europe and sending it overseas. So
Right. Well, you were busy enough, right?
Yeah, we were doing that job. And that was fascinating too, because as many of us know, there's a lot of stockpile there. Yeah.
Well, you know, with world events today, stockpiles of ammunition are kind of a big deal. So you got to see that firsthand.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then what? So getting out, did you go back to the advanced course, or did you rotate out right after your assignment?
I married a West Point cadet while I was once she graduated, Amy Dickinson, and I was assigned in Europe, and I extended. So Amy joined me.
Okay.
And she was class 88. So
88.
we served together. And I did 2 extra years. I got to work in Division Artillery Headquarters.
Okay.
For eventual Colonel Carr at the time. And
so how did the relationship with Amy take flight? Let's walk us through that.
We both got stationed together for that first tour, and I extended. But then, like I started to say before, as soon as the Gulf War was over, they were downsizing. They wanted to reduce the forces, including people that had done maybe 3 or 4 years of active duty service. So I actually had owed 2 more years because I did my master's over in Europe while I was in Boston. Yeah, I have to work that story in because I'm in barracks one day and Terry Finley walks in, you know, with kind of a smirk on his face, and I look at him. I said, "What's going on, Finn?" And he says, and he holds this brochure about Boston University. He says, "Streds, I'm going to get my master's and you're not." Now, you know, there's a lot of this smack talking back then, and everybody was competitive. So he had something in mind when he did this because he knew I would bite, you know. So I said, you know, the heck you're going to do that. If you're doing it, I'm doing it too. You're not going to, you know, outdo me. So, of course, I learned later that I think he just wanted me to ride along to pay half the gas, you know, or whatever. So he could
literally just half the gas and it worked.
Yeah, and it worked. So that's his motivation.
When you see Finley coming, you know there's some sort of program going to be unleashed on you, right?
Exactly. So while I was over there, at least we were productive. You know, a lot of people were going to wine fests on weekends and things like that, or traveling, which we did. But it was actually a nice challenge from Terry, and I was glad.
And what did you study? Was it business?
Yeah, we both got a business graduate degree in business. Boston had a program there, which I think a lot of people still do today when they're in the service. They get that graduate degree. So that was one of the big benefits, and it was a smart move. Of course, Terry went a different direction with his, and I went a different direction with mine. But
well, you went into the highest ranks of the diagnostics world, and Terry's mucking out horse stables.
Yeah, yeah, quite successfully though, having a Kentucky Derby under his belt. But
well, you know,
Finn's doing
there's that trophy thing. Yeah,
plug for Terry. Yeah, we'll let him have that one.
I just talked to him last week.
Yeah. So I'll give Terry credit for that. He still wants like his bonus for getting me to sign up for grad school, you know, because he knows I did better. But
right, and if he hadn't had half the gas picked up, he never would have made it. That's why all that Kentucky Derby stuff started with your share on the gas bill.
Yeah, so I bid on Finley's challenge, and thank goodness. So he and I became close then. That was, you know. Of course, I had to hear stories riding in the car with him to class constantly. But
he's a talker, you know.
I let him talk.
So married in '88 grad. Did you know each other at the academy? Is that where it started, or afterwards? Or what was the story there? Just as much as
to give a shout out to Amy. She was a 8th class of women to graduate at West Point, class 8, number 8. And she had done series school and some, you know, airborne school, some different things. But she was a couple years behind me in E3. So, of course, once she graduated, we got married and, you know, moved over there together. I'd already been there, so she joined me. But, you know, it was you know, tough, long hours, long days when you're working and you're both serving, you know, so that was.
I can't even imagine, honestly. I mean, as a single lieutenant, felt like I had no time for anything. I can't even imagine being married and then being married to another lieutenant. I mean,
right. But, you know, Amy was great. She was always, right there with me, and we were a good team, and a lot of good stuff. So we had our first daughter after we left Germany. She came back, and Lauren, my daughter, came along soon after.
And then, so let's go ahead and get into the children. How many children do you have? Talk us through the family there, because we always got to make sure we pick up the next generation.
Sure. Well, that's nice of you to get a minute with the kids. But Lauren Stredler, she's working for Public Relay, a company out of D.C. in data communications. She's a Purdue grad with a Northwestern certificate. I think I mentioned it to Joe DePinto when she went there, because Joe got his graduate degree there. I think Grant Stredler was a college hockey player at Augustana, small school goalkeeper. He played 4 years there and works for Trustmark Insurance Company out of Chicago. So both my kids are unmarried, but doing great there in Chicago. So Amy and I are real proud of those two, and they're terrific human beings. Grant's joined me and Lauren's joined me even last year for the Army-Navy game.
Oh, great.
We got to hang out and meet a lot of the class. So they're very engaged, and I know they're very proud about both of their parents having gone to West Point.
I bet.
And they're not afraid to be proud of that, just as Amy and I are proud of them and everything they've done.
So talk about the decision to get out. You and Amy both are in uniform. Things are drawing down after Desert Storm. It was kind of a crazy time. What was the conversation there? Did you get out at the same time? How did that work? Yeah,
well, I think, Paul, one of the big things was, at that time, nobody knew how many wars there would be. When would the next one be? If you did serve and you got action, some of us thought that, well, those that got saw action might have an advantage over time, in the promotional ranks and things like that. Maybe that's a false assumption to make, but it's just a natural feeling to have. So, back then there was some heavy junior military officer recruiting organizations that would recruit out of the officer pool, especially over in Europe. And it's made a lot of sense. So we decided, Amy went into the Louisiana National Guard, and I was hired by Abbott Diagnostics in Louisiana. And we made a new home there. So,
was that a full-time role for her? Or did she
was part-time raising Lauren, because Lauren was just born. So it was perfect for her.
Yeah.
And, I was in sales, did medical equipment sales, blood testing.
Now, according to your LinkedIn, you've worked for Abbott for 28 years.
That's right. I was lucky. And let me tell you, if you want to talk about going from great people, both at West Point and in the military, in the service, both officers and enlisted alike, and go to a company like Abbott, I was blessed, because, I felt and have learned over the years that some of the best people in corporate world worked at Abbott Laboratories. And I'm sure there's plenty of them at other places, but we're talking about dedicated people that want to save lives, people that want to make a difference, in healthcare. Just a very well-run company, very, carefully run company. They haven't always been perfect. People will know them from COVID testing and infant formula and things like that. But, day in and day out, I couldn't have thought of a better company to work for. And the people there and the high quality of the people there were just left and right. So I was always in utopia. I was always in utopia with people from West Point. I was in utopia again in the Army, and I was there again when I went to Abbott, because you just don't find such a string of quality people, and I feel very fortunate and lucky to have had that experience.
Now, medical devices and pharmaceuticals and everything, they're all very different. So Abbott Diagnostics is what? That was the large equipment, or talk a little bit about what you actually
so diagnostics, actually, for years, diagnostics, which is in vitro diagnostics, we're talking about drawing blood and testing blood. So that's a term for in vitro. In vivo would be like, x-rays and things like that. In vitro would be fluid, so blood. One of the things about that is it's a very below the radar portion of the healthcare system.
Sure.
Not people understand diagnostics. They know that if I go get my blood drawn, there'll be tests, the results will come back. The doctor will tell me if there's an issue. If not, I'm fine. But, during COVID, that all of a sudden became something that was in the press. People started becoming aware of testing. Am I positive or negative? It was a really unique thing to see. And for those of us that were in diagnostics, it was unfortunate. It was an unfortunate way to start getting limelight around an industry that probably never got, nearly enough thank or recognition for what they do, because there's a lot of people, phlebotomists and medical technicians behind the scene, just like sometimes the enlisted soldiers that wouldn't get the recognition always that they deserve for being behind the scenes, or, but that's a very important part of the medical chain. And as we learned from COVID, and such, it's a very critical thing to know and be able to count on whether a result is positive or negative, or it's abnormal or normal. I mean, a lot of decisions are made.
So you worked your way up through the testing, the test analysis side of the healthcare industry, basically.
Yeah. So, Paul, it was quite fascinating because I was able to pull in the engineering, the problem solving, the numbers. When I was in Abbott, I did sales for years in Louisiana and Texas, but I got a promotion into headquarters, and those were years where we developed the equipment. I did marketing, and we would write customer requirements.
Got it. Okay.
Down in the weeds, but get into the weeds a little bit. We'd figure out what problems need to be solved, what's working, what's not, ways to improve efficiency. And we'd work with the R&D scientists, and these were some of the top scientists in the world, on both things like infectious disease, which we know, from COVID and hearing from people like Dr. Fauci. But I worked with people that were in, numbers and numbers of people like that, that were, scientists that studied viruses and the chains of viruses and the different, formulations and things like that. So we also, built equipment to do the testing. So you take a tube of blood, you put it on an analyzer, and a result comes out like magic. But we developed all that, and it was quite an honor, to do some of that. In fact, one of the analyzers I helped work on with, some of the terrific people at Abbott eventually did do COVID testing. So it actually tests the blood for COVID, for confirmation testing.
Well, you say the limelight, and the limelight never comes when things are going well. So very rarely does the limelight come and say, hey, everything's going well in this corner. So you were always on the front end moving equipment or selling services out to labs that were doing that support testing. Is that right?
Yeah, we sold to hospitals where when you go in to the ER and maybe there's a cardiac situation, they draw blood and they test. I mean, we did the large analyzers back in the main labs, but there's also handheld testing, that's done right there at bedside. People know about that. There's home testing, which people can go buy a kit and such. But also, one of the other things I was very proud of in my later years is I worked on in the blood testing side. So one of my largest customers and clients was the American Red Cross. So we would test. Abbott would also be involved in helping the Red Cross test the blood supply for safety. So if you're listening to this and you haven't donated blood in years, go donate, because everybody can save, you can save up to 3 lives. So we helped American Red Cross do the testing. They would collect the blood and they would test to make sure it's safe, no diseases, HIV, hepatitis, things like that. And then it would be safe for distribution and use, not only with people in hospitals, but also military and other places like that. I'm very proud of that life-saving role. And we did that around the world too. We sold equipment in Japan and many other countries in Europe that would do test the blood for safety.
So 55, they gave you the opportunity to step away. What was your thinking there?
Yeah, Paul. So I had accomplished things that I, wanted to accomplish. And, as far as the business side of things, and it's always, I'm sure for those listening that are still, actively involved in careers, it's always hard to know, when to step out because, maybe people I know enjoy what they do as part of who they are. For me, it was, you realize at some point, time to hand the keys over to the next group of people, the ones coming up. So 55 is fortunately, Abbott has a program where you can retire at that level or, higher, but I was felt very satisfied with what I'd done there, and the people that I had gotten to work with. I felt very lucky to have done some of the things that I did, and it was time. Time was right for me. So yeah.
Talk us through just very briefly a summary level. What like exiting? What was hard about retiring? What did you find was delightful?
Yeah, Paul, I think the heart people are always a little bit nervous, as I was, about well, what am I going to do with my time? I don't want to sit around and do nothing. I want to contribute. I get a lot of satisfaction out of being involved. So, yeah, but I found that I keep a schedule every day. I have things that I do. I've focused a lot on health, Paul.
Well,
Getting
now
in
let's
shape.
talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
workout program, because even
Well,
scheduling this, we had to work it
yeah,
around your program. And I see you
yeah.
on Facebook in beast mode, and that old long snapper's still in there somewhere because he's in there hitting them weights. So talk about your workout program.
Well, believe me, I let Healy know and Sauter that I can do more pull-ups than they can. So here's the thing. I'll give this plug to our class and anybody else listening. Take your health seriously. Put yourself first. Especially at this point in your life. I mean, Paul, I've been lucky, but I schedule it in every day. I'm
Yeah.
just about 6 days a week, an hour or so. Get a trainer or there's a lot of apps you can use where you download workouts. But the bottom line is just do something. It doesn't have to be strenuous or difficult, but I think there's been a big kick on healthy eating as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd encourage people to focus on eating healthy, getting plenty of rest and sleep. Dan Parietti, my smart CEO friend, class 85, he always reminds me that sleep is one of the most important things we need
100%. Yeah.
for ourselves.
And I know you're a big weight. You're in the weight room, but keeping your strength is really important.
Yes, strength. We want our joints, our knees, our muscles, especially lower body and core. I'll tell people you want to keep that functioning for yourself. People that live into their 90s can sit up and down in a chair 10 times, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important at this point in our life. Sure, many people are still, heavy in their careers or things that they're doing, but I would encourage people, take time out for that. I want to see everybody live a happy, healthy life late into the years. So, and if you're not doing it now, you can start now, do something small, but it's discipline of every day. And
Yeah.
I think
Good
that's
for
what
you.
I've found, to be most important. And I enjoy it. It's great to do. You meet people and it's a great thing.
You know what we need from you? We need a Courage Never Quits lifting program for
yeah,
longevity, not for,
well,
right? For
yeah,
longevity.
maybe we could schedule something, the same time every day and get people all together and do a workout. We can change it around each day. But
Yeah, I think that's
pull it.
there you go. See, there's West Point. We're always got something cooking. Always something.
Yeah, I'm not
cooking.
a tech person, but if we can
Well,
pull it.
unbelievable success. If you were to go back at any time in your life and give yourself a piece of advice,
Yeah.
where would you go, and what would you say to yourself that you think would help, assuming that you would listen to yourself?
Yeah. I'd say Stred's self.
Yeah.
Stred. Learn to be present. Learn to be present in life. I think that's the biggest thing I can say that I've learned along the way. It goes fast and you meet a lot of people and a lot of things will happen, but stop, be present, listen to the people you're around. We're always thinking about the next thing or the next question or the next thing we want to say. I guess I'd love to talk too, like everybody else, but saying that, being present.
Be present.
Yeah, being present and savoring the moment that you're in. That's the biggest thing. Don't get too far ahead of yourself.
Sage advice, and we can do it. We can be present from here on. Is a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, both in relationships as well as in your whatever practice or next career, which I'm working on now. So
now, when do we get an announcement on the next career? Because you're teasing us now.
I'll hopefully say something soon. But
all right.
One thing I didn't mention along the way, I did 5 years of high school football coaching and 7 years of youth. So I'm looking at reemerging. Not anything big, maybe a small high school level. Freshman head coach, something like that. Well, just to get my feet wet again. But
I think that's magnificent, and I think the CNQ podcast could use help with an exclusive. So when you're ready to announce, you let me know.
If there's anything to say, I'll let you know, but we'll see what happens. I'm nervous about it because I don't care what level you coach of any sport. When you get the call and you go back into it, you got to really only jump into it with both feet, 110%.
Yeah. Coaching and teaching is excellent.
to
No,
that
we got to
coach.
see. We got to see what got Bruce Holstein. So I don't want to see everything that Bruce Holstein gets excited about because that would be a whole different type of podcast. But
I don't know.
Let's have a look at that view, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Stredler compound right there.
Yeah. So there's the chairs for lounging. Back over here, we got the jacuzzi.
Yeah. See, ladies and gentlemen, what you are seeing on your screen now is the 1986 Las Vegas headquarters.
Yeah, and if you look, there's the sun shining out in the distance. That's behind me. That's Lake Mead. That's
right.
Little Lake Mead out there. So
yeah,
it's quite something. I encourage people to come visit. Just get on the schedule because in case we get a rush.
Well, you know what? I think we're going to need to get. First of all, we got to get the Streds workout program. We got to get the Calendly so we can come in there and stay at the headquarters. We got a lot going on here. We got to have your new schedule should a coaching career emerge. We got a lot going on here. We got to track.
And I'll even, if you can't get out to the resort, I'll meet you downtown. Dan called me one day. Great guy. Wrestler from our class. Met him down on the Strip. So
full service. Well, that's exciting to know, particularly now that Las Vegas is it's a great draw for all of us as we all gracefully retire. So. Now
the Sphere.
Got somebody.
The Sphere now with the Eagles were there.
The Sphere, the whole thing. Yeah. I think you better get ready for the once the word hits. Danny Stredler, what a pleasure talking again. What a great program and a great story. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Hey, and Paul, thanks for doing this. I'm hopefully people enjoy it. So.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.